Preface to The Secret of the Sahara, Kufara by Rosita Forbes. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please contact LibriVox.org. Recorded by Stephen Seitel, October 2019. The Secret of the Sahara, Kufara by Rosita Forbes. Preface. I feel this Libyan story needs a few words of explanation, for, owing to the peculiar circumstances in which it was undertaken, it is not the usual consecutive and comprehensive book of travel compiled after the return of an expedition, wherein the traveler is able to review the journey as a whole. Reading such works, I have so often found myself asking, "And then what happened?" Or, "I wonder what he felt at that moment." Well, this is a very simple account of what happened next. In no way does it pretend to be a scientific record of exploration, for, owing to the ever-urgent necessity of secrecy and disguise, the use of most instruments was an impossibility. The spirit of the story changes with the mood and the method of its development. It was written in so many odd ways, at so many odd times, under a scented sage bush in the sunset while the slaves were putting up our tent, or huddled inside a flea bag when the nights were very cold. Sometimes, when life was exciting, it was scribbled on a camel under the shelter of a barakan. Twice at least, the last chapter, according to all human calculations, was completed in the hope that the tattered copybooks would somehow find their way back to civilization, and the fate of the expedition would be known up till its last moments. It is a daily record of success and failure, of a few months in an alien world, showing how much of that world's spirit was absorbed. Because in real life, the big things and the little things are inextricably mixed up together. So, in Libya at one moment, one worried because one's native boots were full of holes. At the next, perhaps, one wondered how long one would be alive to wear them. This book records the former mood as well as the latter, because both at the time were equally important. Naturally, such an impossible, illogical journey leaves one indebted to so many people that it is difficult to pick out those to whom one owes most. I have dedicated the story of our adventures to my co-explorer, Ahmed Bey Hassanain, for his knowledge of the Senussi acquired during his secretaryship to the Talbot mission in 1916 was invaluable to me, and he was the loyalest of my allies throughout the expedition. His tact and eloquence so often saved the situation when my Arabic failed, and we laughed and fought through all our difficulties together. Long before my Kufara expedition merged from impossible dream to probable fact, many officers stationed in the western desert lent me their knowledge of the Senussi oasis, gathered from careful conversations with Bedouin sheiks and merchants, while from Khartoum, El Fasher, and Cairo came maps and route reports which were most useful. I now know that we might have benefited exceedingly from Rolfe's most careful and valuable writings on the subject of his North African travels, but unfortunately we only possessed his Kufra, which does not attempt much description of the oasis he was the first European to visit, confining itself chiefly to the relation of the story of the destruction of his camp and the breakup of the expedition. In a journal of the African Society, the great German explorer gives the exact bearing on which he marched from Jallo. Had we known this at the time, we might have arrived at Tizerbo in spite of the error in the extent of vegetation marked on the map. We picked up the traces of Rolfe's journey at Busima, where some of the inhabitants remembered him as Mustafa Bey. At Hawari, several sheiks told us stories about his adventures there and at Buma, but at no point could we find any trace of Stecker having visited the oases. On the contrary, we were categorically assured by Sheikhs Mohammed el-Madini, Bouregia, and Sidi Omar at Busima, and by Sheikhs Musa Squireen, Mansour Bubadr, Musa Gabrahil, and Sidi Zarug at Hawari, that Rolfes had no other European with him. Stecker was the surveyor of the party, and, in view of the difference in the position he assigned to Buma and that which we believe it to occupy, we made the most exhaustive
Sample complete. Ready to continue?